Hello and welcome to another Bourbon with Your Broker. This is Nate Dreyer. He's my very good friend. He's also the owner of Idaho Excavating. He does a lot of septic work, road work here in the area, and so I thought this would be a great opportunity to sit down with him and talk to him about how that process goes for anyone that's thinking about buying a new property out here. And we're going to do an old fashioned because Nate does enjoy a good fashion. So, and it's my favorite drink. So, everyone knows we're going to start with a sugar cube real quick. And then we're going to use today the Bitter Housewife Aromatic Bitters. And this was given to me by a friend in Denver, Colorado. He's a lost boy. Oh. And one day maybe you'll hear the story about the lost boys. But thank you for that. And then we're going to... Oops.
Get the whole thing down. Need that eventually.
Now we're going to muddle that sugar cube. Let's get it good and mixed up there. Okay. Now we are going to add our beautiful bourbon here. Nice high proof. This week's Bourbon with Your Broker, we're featuring Baker's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is a single barrel, 107 proof. It is aged 8 years and 2 months. Then we use our pocket knife because we like to make sure that we get that aroma of alfalfa in there after feeding the heifers earlier.
Perfect.
I like to just peel the orange, take it, give it a little pinch right over the top, a little garnish. Do it again. And then my favorite, clear ice cubes. If you've never had an adult beverage with a clear ice cube, you're missing out. Alrighty. Well, Nate, cheers. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Well, Nate, you have the distinct privilege of being the very first interview in my brand new bourbon room.
Perfect.
Isn't this nice?
This is really nice.
So I'm not going to lie. I'm hoping this room makes all my friends super jealous.
It kind of does.
So my wife was nice enough. This was my Christmas gift. Was she gave me my room back, and we filled it with bourbon and a nice television, and makes a great little studio here where we can sit down and enjoy nice bourbon with friends.
10-4. I like it.
So Nate, as an excavator here, I mean, right now you've been extremely busy the last couple of years. The influx of people into our area has been pretty large, but you're probably starting to notice, maybe you still have a lot of work, but I bet the phone's not ringing as much.
No, it's definitely slowed down, but it generally does during the winter time, But as soon as it starts getting spring and sun comes up, then generally gets pretty busy.
Yeah, so. And really, I mean, your primary focus is mostly septic tanks, driveways, house pads, that kind of thing.
Yeah, roads. Yeah, kind of a full service deal.
So. Yeah, and something that I use you quite often with when I have clients buying land is Nate does offer the service of you'll go out and dig the site for a perk test.
Sure.
And he doesn't charge you for it, but the expectation is, when you go to put in a septic, you're going to give him a call and let him put it in. So, I know this is probably a lot easier question than a well driller would have, but I know I get it all the time. What's the average cost? I know it's pretty much impossible to give an average cost, but putting in a septic tank, putting in leach lines and that kind of stuff, and getting that part ready, about how much money is a homeowner going to be looking at?
Like you said, it's an average. With everything going up and everything, how it's been closer to about $8,500 to do a full service septic system. So on average.
And then your road, you probably have a cost of it by the foot down pretty well, don't you?
It kind of varies because if it depends on the soil. Sometimes you get soil that's 2 foot deep. Sometimes you get it where you can just scrape off 6-8 inches. So depends on how deep you have to go with your rock. So it's kind of hard to get an average of how much.
And that's a huge thing around here because we've got this incredible soil for growing wheat.
Yep.
But it's not great for putting roads on.
It is not. It is not.
So sometimes you really got to take some earth off, get down there.
Yep.
Otherwise, every year you're just putting thousands of dollars of rock on it and pushing it further down into the earth.
Yep. And I've had customers, they're like, "Man, can't we do it cheaper?" I said, "Well, yeah, you can do it cheaper, but you're going to end up spending more money in the long run. To put more rock and stuff on as it is. Just do it right. Get the right drainage." And the right amount of rock underneath there to bridge it and make a good road.
Yeah. And just like pretty much everything else with life, you can go cheap or you can go
exactly.
good.
Right. And you'll never have to touch it again.
Yep, exactly. So always something to think about.
Yep.
So inside of a septic tank, and that's actually something else I want to bring up. In our area, it is, because of that farm soil, it is really common here for lagoons. And the idea of a lagoon is much worse than the reality of one, but
definitely.
Kind of talk to us why a person would need a septic or a lagoon.
Well, so lagoon is in a place where it's just a lot of clay. You can't get out of the clay, so you just, there's nothing going to leach out. So then they make a lagoon, so so it just holds the water in there and does its thing.
Instead of like a septic tank being underground and your leach lines underground, the idea is that water will evaporate up into the sky.
Yep.
In the clay soil, it just stays in the soil.
Yep. So
lagoon being more of an open hole, and it evaporates. The sun hits it, and like water evaporates naturally in nature. But
people think they're stinky and stuff, but really, if you do them right, and they have to be up to code. I mean, you really don't even know. There's just a little pond there that you fence off.
Yep.
And there's no smell.
Yep.
There's no nothing. So
yep.
A lot of people are worried about them. But
most of my buyers, when they see one for the first time, they go, "Oh, that's cute. There's a nice little pond on the property."
Right.
And they go, "Well, those are where we keep the boneless browns. And you might know how to play in there."
Yep.
So
just don't swim in it. You'll be fine.
So I know a lot of people just aren't used to them, but they're really pretty common here. And like I said, when you have one, it's no big deal. It's just out there.
It just takes a little bit of real estate.
Yep.
And
no more than really a septic, because you don't want to drive over the top of your septic or your leach lines anyway.
Right.
So you're not losing anything either way.
No, either way, it's about the same amount.
Yeah.
So
the crazy thing is it's about the same amount of money.
It is.
Even though you don't need a concrete box.
Right.
But that's for other reasons that we
it
don't
takes
need
more excavation to build the pond. But.
Yep. So the difference between septics and lagoons also brings up something I really wanted to cover here today too, is if you're not familiar with Idaho County, this is one of the freest counties probably left in the entire country. They don't require building permits here. You want to build a house, you go to the lumber store, you buy it, you go home and you start. But there are some state required permits that are inside of our county because they're state required. One of them is anything to do with septic or plumbing. Okay. And so it is pretty common for people here to sometimes I can do my own tank, which is fine.
Right. They can do it.
But go get a homeowner's permit. Yep. But, if you hire a professional, one, you're going to get it done right. And two, they're going to make sure that it's done legally.
Right.
And so can you kind of go through the process of what it requires of a homeowner to do the perk test, get a permit, and go through that process? And how much of it do you do for them?
So I can do pretty much all of it if they're out of town and not here, or they can do it online at the public health here in Grangeville. But most time, it's easier for them to do it because you have to know the township, the range, and all that stuff that they know on their after they purchase the property, which I can still come up with all that if they want me to. And then, so you got to go in there, you got to fill all that out, kind of a plot plan, what you're going to do with your house and where you're going to put your septic. And then, you do all that, submit your application, pay $800 fee. And then if they get a hold of me or whatever, then we can do the perk test. and then go from there. And then we can just, we put in the septic system and it's done.
And per test, for anyone that doesn't know, you go out and you dig a hole, and it has to be 20 inches deep.
28 inches is minimum,
28 inches,
but
okay.
they like to see a 6 foot deep hole. But if you're in some rock, it will not perk. If you can't get over 28 inches, then it won't be passed.
Yep. And the inspector from the state comes out and he looks at that hole, and he's the one at that point that determines, yes, you can put a septic in, or you have to do it again.
And then he'll determine the length and what we have to do from there.
And of course, they're also going to want to know the size of the house, how many bathrooms.
Yep. How many bedrooms?
You usually have to do a diagram on your property of kind of where you're going to build a house, where your well is, where your septic is, because you want those two waters separated.
The well's got to be 100 foot away from the septic system. It's pretty simple, once you get the permit and get Mike out there and just lay it out and make it happen.
Yeah, and Nate's got a great story. I think living in America is such a great place. I mean, and there's so many opportunities in this world today. But Nate came to Grangeville. He lived in New Meadows most of his life, but came up to Grangeville and worked for somebody who was doing this exact same thing. That guy ended up closing down his business for whatever reason. Doesn't really matter. But Nate took an opportunity to go out and buy himself a small excavator, drug it behind his little Dodge pickup, which is probably his biggest flaw. His Dodges.
Wait a minute.
and really that's how you got your start here. It's just a real small excavator in your pickup, and you just kind of took off. And one of my favorite stories, you went over to do a small job for a friend of ours, and before you left, you had 3 jobs from the neighbors.
Seems
so
like
that's
every
kind of
time
how
you're
you
in town.
just built your whole company.
Yeah.
So now you've got a much bigger excavator. What else do you have?
Trucks,
in equipment?
rollers, dozers, employees,
which is everyone's favorite part of owning a business, by the way.
Oh man!
But it's great that you were able to come up for a job. That job ended. You went and built yourself a career. Now you're giving other people a job, and so that's awesome.
Yep, it's awesome for us to do that too.
Even gave your wife the opportunity to quit working her job, and
she's the boss now.
Yeah,
so we work for her.
I got one of those too. This is really good bourbon. I'm really enjoying it. I don't remember where I got this from or who. And by the way, if nobody notices or knows this whole show is just a shameless ploy on my part to get free bourbon from people. So if you're ever coming from anywhere in the United States and coming to Grangeville and want to bring me bourbon, I always appreciate it. But I don't remember where I got this. But man, I'm really enjoying it.
It's really good.
It's a nice high proof, but
smooth.
Yes, drinks very well. I'm enjoying it a lot. So the other thing I was wanting to talk to you about is work isn't the only thing that kept you here. This is just a great community.
It is.
You've got 3 kids that you're raising here. You have a wonderful wife. You married up more than anyone I've ever met in my life.
Wait a minute.
But no, it's a great community, and we love to do recreational things here. And there is a ton to do.
A bunch.
You like camping.
I like camping, fishing, boating.
Going to Orfino, which is an hour drive from here. We got Dorshack Reservoir. You spend a lot of time on there with your boat.
Yep.
A lot of bass fishing. We spend a lot of time on the Salmon River. We whitewater raft.
Yeah.
There is side-by-side. This is one of the coolest things. Nate and I both live right inside the city limits. We can get on our side-by-sides at our houses, and we can drive them up into the forest.
You could run out of gas driving on the roads,
easily.
on the trails.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's just an awesome place to live.
It is.
You can come home, grab your son, run up there, look for a deer during hunting season.
Yeah.
Look for a deer not during hunting season, just without guns.
Just have fun. It's a great place.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of iffy about moving here. My wife was definitely not really enthused about it.
Yeah.
But we come up here, and so far we've been really enjoying it.
And this is something I don't know if we're ever going to do it or not, but there is a bourbon with your broker out there that no one was ever intended to see. and we might kind of put it out there, but I think this is a funny story. Nate came over, and my other good buddy Matt, and Matt and I are tall and big guys, and Nate, we kind of sent him right in the center of us, and you were, I don't know, a little bit behind us too.
Yeah.
But anyways, Matt and I can talk a lot. And Nate kind of sat there just like that and shook his head up and down for about an hour long. So
Yep.
I think we might have to pull some of that footage out and
Bring it in.
put on the internet. So I appreciate you talking more on this one than we did on the first one.
Oh, I'm trying.
Yeah, right. So if you have any interest in seeing some of that, give us a comment, and
Right.
I might have to make that work.
I don't know if you
Show
should.
the bourbon with your broker you were never supposed to see.
Right, there you go.
Right?
That's it.
So, of course, your big business is tanks, driveways, house pads, but you offer a lot of other services. You do have a gravel truck.
Yep.
You can haul gravel.
Oh yeah.
What else do you do?
We do snow plowing. That's kind of the winter work that we have. Keep it going.
This winter, normally I tell people, like, winters here are not too bad, but it started snowing here, which is not uncommon, but it's sticking.
Right. We didn't see this till like January, February.
Yeah, and so we've actually got quite a bit of snow on the ground. This is mid-December right now.
Yeah.
And we've got quite a bit of snow, so I think we might have a pretty good sized snowpack this year, which will make whitewater rafting awesome, but also it might take a little longer before we can get on the river this year.
Right.
Which is no fun, but
So, no, we do a lot of snow plowing. We got a lot of contracts. We do residential, we do businesses, we do kind of whoever calls. But and we do salting, and we shovel sidewalks and
yeah, even last spring it was really wet year, so
Yeah.
I mean you had a hard time just getting your equipment onto a property.
that's the problem. Wet springs, it puts you behind trying to figure out how to go, and
Yep.
I mean, you can work in the wet, but it just costs more money for the the person that's paying for it.
This is something I wanted to talk to you about because this is something that I sometimes have to deal with, and I'm sure to a lesser degree you do, but know where your property lines are, and then maybe don't put stuff right on the property line.
That's for sure.
I mean, you go out there and the landowner tells you to dig a hole there, that's where you're going to dig the hole, right?
Right. But I always ask for property lines. I always want to know where everything's at. For instance, there was one in Orfino. So I had to go back and move a tank and move the whole leach field. They put it on someone else's property.
Yeah.
So whoever did it, I don't know. But, you should
didn't
always
install the tank,
I
somebody
did not
else
install
did.
anything. They called me to move it. So, I always make sure, where the property lines are, because you have to be 5 feet away from any property line with your leach field. So you got to know that.
And it just makes sense. I mean, I get the allure of putting it as far
Sure.
over, as you can.
Kinda out of the way.
If something goes wrong at some point, you got to get in there and work on it. And if all of a sudden you got a new neighbor, you got a fence, you
never know.
It's incredible sometimes to me the amount of people. I know of one right now. They put the well right on the line, and then they put the power over into the neighbor's property, and the water line's over into the neighbor's property, and it's a current issue right now, and they're fighting it out.
Right.
And all he had to do was say, "Hey, this is the line. Keep it 10 feet away."
Right. And people don't do that, and they think they're saving money or saving time to move it over closer, and it don't work. It just, you got to know where the property lines are. You got to know what you're putting in, and I mean, where they put it in was a great place, only on someone else's property.
Yeah, right.
It didn't work real well.
It always works well on someone else's property.
Yeah. So, that was the only one I've really had troubles with, but that wasn't my fault. That was
I mean, it's like I said. I mean, they're the landowner, and they're saying put it here.
Right.
Then that's what they hired.
But then that's the other thing. Before they put everything in, they should probably hire someone to know where put the well and stuff, because sometimes I've had people put wells in, and then you have to try to figure out where the septic's going to be. Mm-hmm. So it's better to probably get an excavator guy to tell you where to put the well, or figure out where you're going to put the septic system.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, I had one up right here out of Mount Idaho, and it was challenging to fit the septic system in with where they put the well. Mm-hmm. So
a little bit of planning and forethought.
A little planning was a little bit better.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about this small community too. Like all of the other contractors in here, we all know each other.
Yeah,
we're all friends with each other. Yeah. You know, and so if it comes to you working with and Stavinga Vesey well drilling and Nail and Son well drilling are probably the two biggest ones here in the area. We're friends with both of them. We know them both. We talk to them all the time.
Yep.
And so don't be scared of when you hire Nate or you hire a well driller. Like, this is who's doing my septic. You're doing my well.
We all know each other.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, you just figure out where it's going to be and try to work with it. So, you know, because really the well can kind of go a little bit off wherever, but, you know, your septic system, there's sometimes, depending on the terrain.
Yep.
I mean, you
here in Grangeville, usually not as big a deal here in Grangeville, but like you get over towards Orfino area, and everything's on the side of the mountain.
It is, and that's where it really changes.
Yeah, I mean, you can really change. So if you're up on a mountainside, it's probably more important than if you're on the prairie and it's pretty flat.
Right. But a lot of clients, you know, they say, okay, where are we going to put the septic? And I'll tell them, okay, here's where it's going to work, and then, you know, your well needs to be over here, and that's kind of how we started off.
Yep.
But
you know, that also kind of reminds me of, we were talking earlier about the farm ground and how well it holds water here. I've noticed that there's a lot of people that are buying, a lot of the farmers are selling kind of what we call their scab ground. They can't really farm it for whatever reason. It's usually a little rockier or whatever. The soil's not as good. Sure. But it's still that farming type soil. And the soil holds water so well here. If you go dig yourself a foundation, it's gonna fill with water.
Yeah, oh yeah, it will.
And so there's a lot of places here you really should put a French drain in right away. Place. Is that something a service that you do?
Every foundation I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and usually you're probably pretty good at knowing like, hey, you probably should put a French drain in here.
If you pretty much every foundation I dig, you have to put a French drain in. So if not, your foundation underneath your crawl space will be flooded.
Yep.
So
and so that's why you're recommending it, right?
Yeah.
It's not that you're trying to get them for another whatever how much it costs to do that, but
it's a must around
it's
here.
Because when springtime comes and that snow melts and that rain comes out of the sky, your crawl space will be full of water.
It will.
My brother, I told him that. He didn't listen. His crawl space full of water. He ended up doing a French drain after they did their lawn.
Yeah, and you tear it all up. Yep. You have to have one.
Yep.
Around here.
Yep, for sure. Well, Nate, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope some people maybe learned a little bit about septic tanks, perk testing, that kind of stuff. I know you do fantastic work. I've sent you many clients. They've all been super happy with you. I actually went onto a piece of property, didn't know you were the one that did it, but saw digging, that had been done, and it was like cleaned up. It was like flat. It looked really nice. And I went, I wonder if Nate did that. And I called you up and found out you did. So I know for a fact you do great work. And so that's one reason why I really appreciated you coming in here and sitting down with me, talking about what you do, the services you have. Because I know that if anyone out there is looking for anything like what you're doing, you're going to take care of them.
Yep.
So thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed your bourbon.
I did.
All right.
For sure.
So I got to say, Baker's Bourbon is fantastic. I would highly recommend it.
I definitely would.
And this comes from a guy who drinks Canadian whiskey, so
I am.
That is good drinking whiskey. If you get a chance to find it, grab it. I give it my seal of approval. Please always drink responsibly. Thank you so much for joining us here on Bourbon with Your Broker. And if you would like, please like and subscribe to my channel. We would love to have you on there. I have over 500 subscribers now, which I know doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was a big goal of mine to do before the end of the year. And it's halfway through December, and I hit 501 last week. So
perfect.
Super excited about that, and would love to have you subscribe to the channel. And we will see you next time on Bourbon with Your Broker.